a stranger with a gun came upon 2 teens taking pictures under a rising full moon. But violence is only the beginning of this story.
Sometimes I thought, there are no miracles. Yeah, there are, and this is a big one.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and I've spent my career talking about how lives are undone by violence. The Letter is a podcast about how lives are remade. Follow The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Project Recovery. It's a podcast about addiction and recovery. We're answering listeners' emails right now. Dr. Matt's giving advice. I'm trying to jump in where I can. But this is so important to us because this podcast isn't about us. It's about everybody. It's about the community and sharing our stories that are out there. And one question I get all the time, Dr. Matt, is it says, Casey uses mindfulness and meditation to help him. Does that really work? And I can answer the first part of that. Yes, it does. And it kind of goes to what we've been talking about, being mindful of certain situations and giving them their due respect, but not dwelling upon them and living in the moment. And because that's the only thing I really have control over right now is the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what mindfulness means to me. But I don't know what the clinical definition would be.
Well, I mean, essentially you've captured it, although I will say a lot of people listening hear that phrase, living in the moment. It kind of sounds like a hippie dream or something.
Carpe diem, seize the day.
Exactly. But I would say the way I might explain it a little further, but I mean, you've essentially captured it, and it works for you, and it works for so many people. The reason is this. Our brains and our emotions, everything works in a certain way. And one way you could say that it works is how we think about things has a huge impact on how we feel, and how we feel has a huge impact on what we do. Thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Yeah, if you got a textbook, it's more complicated than that, but that's the basics. So that means where I focus my brain is going to impact how I feel and what I do. And a person who has an addiction, they're at work right now, where is their brain? It's not in the moment where their work is.
I'm counting down the clock to the next beer.
Right. And they might be thinking about, oh, I have a family party tonight. Oh, I hate going to those things. I need to stop and get some beer before I go. I need to get a little bit loaded before I go to that thing. Or, I don't want to go home because we had that argument last night and I better stop off at the bar first. And so your brain is outside the moment, whether it's focusing on stressors that you might feel like you need your substance for, or you're just jonesing and thinking about the next time you can get your substance, your DOC.
Get your fix.
And so you're not in the moment. So when your brain is gone from the moment, then emotion can kind of take over, because those are stressful thoughts. They create anxious emotions, stressful emotions, and those are going to influence unproductive behaviors, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, right? Mm-hmm. However, if you practice being in control of your thoughts, and believe it or not, it is just like going to the gym. You've gotten pretty svelte.
Yoked.
Yeah, yoked.
Exactly. That's what the kids are saying.
That's what they say about
swole.
you. Hey, he's yoked.
He's swole.
Is that what they say? I thought
S-W-O-L.
that meant something else.
Nope.
Okay. So, when you went to the gym over and over and over again, you started to see results. Mm-hmm. Our brains are very trainable in a similar way that our muscles are. If you do not control how your thoughts go, if you don't learn how to train your thinking process, then guess what? Strong things in your environment will, like an addiction. Your addiction will teach your brain that the addiction's in charge of what the brain does, and that brain is going to be thinking about their fix all day long from the moment you wake up. When can I use? So when you practice mindfulness, it's like taking your brain to the gym. What you're doing is you're practicing using your senses to focus your attention in the present moment. Your brain is off in the future after work. I'm going to drink. Nope. I practice bringing my thoughts into the present. And what you're doing is you're strengthening neural pathways of control over your thinking by bringing yourself into the present. Breathing calms your body down. Being present focused by using sounds, smells, thoughts, tactile sensations, those things. You're practicing bringing and then you can reframe your situation. nope, I can reframe what I'm doing after work today. I don't really want that outcome. What I'm going to do instead of stopping off for a six-pack before the family party, I'm going to stop off and talk to my sponsor.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Exactly.
Right?
Right. It's Jedi mind tricking yourself, I guess, if you want to think of it that way. But it's not a trick because you're actually changing your brain. You're not growing new brain cells. That's important for people to know. But brain cells operate by connection, and we call those neural pathways. And by practicing this over and over again, you're strengthening those neural pathways. They start off as a thread, and then they turn into a rope the more you practice this. And so mindfulness can bring your your focus into the present and help people get through those moments when they would have impulsively used.
And one way to do that is meditation.
Yes, meditation. Mindfulness is sort of like an active meditation throughout the day, but I obviously suggest, like you and I both do, that people take some time every day to learn how to meditate. That's where you're sitting quietly in silence, and there are a variety of ways to do that. If you're new to this or if you're a little skeptical, start with guided meditation from an app.
Yeah.
So instead of you generating it yourself, then you can use, and we're not getting any money from these guys, but the two best, I think. Headspace is one, and Calm is the other, C-A-L-M, Calm. Both have some research behind what they do. There are other good apps too, but that's a good place to start for a person who's skeptical about mindfulness and meditation.
Someone also told me about this, and I'm pretty sure they told me, or I didn't make this up. Maybe I did. But like they'll go in and you'll talk to someone, and they go, all right, they're stressing out. 5 blue things in the room. And as a way to bring them back into the moment so they get out of their head, or 5 different soda pops. And you do that so that it kind of gets them thinking, they calm down, and they kind of get out of that space that they were just in. Right.
That anxious, stressful, catastrophic thinking is usually about future things that you perceive you can't control. Things aren't going to be okay. Kind of that catastrophizing, sky is falling sort of thinking. And then by having to name 5 blue things in the room, what are we doing essentially? We're using our eyes to identify 5 colors that are right here in front of me right now. And so for that moment, at least, it forces your attention back to now. And then you gain back control over your thoughts and therefore your emotions and hopefully your behaviors.
So, the other thing is, we put it out on our Facebook page how mindfulness and meditation's really helping a lot for those in recovery. And I think there's some words that are being thrown around right now in the recovery world that are like buzzwords right now. It's being authentic. It's mindful, it's meditation, it's DBT. And I think for a lot of people who have been in the recovery world for a while, they go, it's just hippie nonsense. That's, no. But there's some real science behind these things. I mean, they become buzzwords for a reason because they seem to be having no momentum, but these are real things that can help people in their addiction.
Yeah, for example, there's a lot of research on things like using mindfulness to do pain management. Now, that seems ridiculous.
Yeah, what? Come on.
Like somebody who has chronic pain, and I don't mean like an owie. I mean somebody who is probably going to have this pain the rest of their life or for a long term. And so the go-to treatments in the past have always been opiates and other medications. And what do we know about that? People get addicted, and the body habituates or gets used to the medication, so you need more and more of it.
They can't get it, so they go to the street version.
And you can have withdrawals when you don't, and it might lead to street drugs like heroin and things like that. We know that story here on the show. What we've found is research is very clear. In fact, a lot of research coming out of the University of Utah talks about the fact that we can show that people who practice mindfulness can either discontinue or use a much lower dose of their opiate medication over time, and they actually report healthier feelings. The reason for that is every medication has side effects, and the side effects of opiates are you feel disconnected, you can feel nauseous. There's lots of different problems that come from using opiates over time. And so we can measure that. There's a lot of great research on that department, that mindfulness helps pain management and therefore helps reduce, the likelihood that a person's going to become addicted. It also applies in other areas. There's good research on your brain function. And we know that through functional MRI studies, people who do about 8 to 9 weeks of transcendental meditation every day.
What does that mean?
That means sitting in silence for about 2 20-minute periods every day. Transcendental is a particular type of meditation where you use an internal mantra, and it's kind of what the Maharishi taught the Beatles.
Okay.
Right? And so it's a very traditional type of meditation. But we know that a functional MRI study, which shows the brain and how it's functioning, the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobes of your brain, where you have judgment, reason, foresight, focus, and mental control, a lot of that happens right in that center. You're increasing its density. It's like getting bigger muscles. You can measure that. This isn't somebody thinking that that's a good idea. Now we can show you pictures. There's research that shows some people definitely have improved their brain structure in an important area. If you can focus and have good judgment and reason, how much better are you going to be in your recovery?
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
But see, I'm just playing the devil's advocate. How do you get somebody to buy into that? You know, someone's in a crisis. Their loved one's been doing this for so long. They call somebody and go, he's an addict. We can't get him out here. What do we do? And you go, have you tried to meditate? I would tell that person.
Listen to the Beatles.
Yeah. Well,
Let it be, baby.
But I mean, it's just another tool in your tool belt.
So it's probably not it's not your, I mean, if a person's right in the throes of their addiction, they need to get
detox, a recovery center,
right.
But this is just another tool to put in your belt to help.
Absolutely.
To help you on your road to recovery and help you stay on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't be the only thing a person does. And if a person is, right in the middle of their addiction, then they do, just like you did, they need to go get dry. They need to go get clean, go through a detox, and then most people are successful when they go to a recovery center because you're living and breathing it every single day, and that might be the place where you learn.
That's what I did.
To this training, and it isn't magic therapy. I wish it was. These aren't the droids you're looking for. We could do it that quickly. It's like going to the gym. Why do you think most people, don't stick with it? It's hard. It's hard to go to the gym over time, but it's a guarantee that if you're going to the gym and doing the right kind of exercises, you will see results if you stick with it. That's one of the comforting things about sticking with it. You will get results. And if you are in recovery and you haven't incorporated mindfulness or meditation, I highly recommend that you just add it to whatever else you're doing already. Mm-hmm. Not in place of, but in addition to. And I think you're going to find, wow, I feel more focused. I feel like I make better judgment. I feel like I live in the present more. And the reality is we have to plan for the future and learn from the past, but the only time we ever do anything is in the present. So if you're a successful person, you've been working in the present on whatever you're successful in. So you may not realize it. You may not think of it that way. But the present is the only time you're alive. It's a little weird and existential to think about, this is the only time I'm alive is sitting here talking to you right now, and then later I'll be somewhere else talking to somebody else. But these are the moments where I do something. Now, my thoughts can be so powerful that it feels like I'm in the past if I'm thinking about the past, or feels like I'm in the future if I'm worrying about the future. But I have to bring those focuses to the present to do anything productive.
Love it. That's going to lead us to our last question of the episode. And this is one I get all the time, because I work for Pinnacle Recovery now. A lot of people ask this question: how long is a stay in recovery? And, I think for the most part, the general perception is it's a 30-day program. And the reality is for some people 30 days.
What was that Sandra Bullock movie, 28 days?
28 days. But I mean, there's a lot of reason why that is the 30 days. Now, at Pinnacle where we stay, recovery, it's like we want to keep you as long as we can. But we also understand that
Is that just for money?
No.
Why is it?
let me put it this way. So when you go into recovery and you've got 30 days, and this is just speaking from my own experience, I spent 7 days in a detox facility on Ativan and some other drugs detoxing me off of alcohol. So you get off of that and you go into a recovery center. Say you've only got 30 days. That first week is a blur. You're coming off all of that. You're acclimating yourself to the new surroundings. You're trying to figure everything. So that first week is just a blur. Okay? So then you go into week 2. So you figure you've got that week, you start to figure it out. You start to buy into the process. You start to do the deep dive. You figure it out. Then you're into week 3. So you start in 21 days. And you're really making some breakthrough. You're coming along, you're figuring things out, you're feeling good about yourself, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, I'm at 28 days, I'm supposed to be leaving in 3 days. Well, now you're taking yourself out of this comfort zone of what all you're learning and thinking, I got to get back to my real life. Everything's waiting for me outside those doors.
Things might be worse in some ways.
Things might be worse.
You might not have a job.
Yeah.
Your wife's mad.
You don't know that. So you really think of, so you've got about 23 days out of that 30. Mm-hmm. So I say stay as long as you can. And it's as simple as that. Stay as long as you can.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
I think what you're after is what I would call the practice effect. This is training. You have alcoholism, or whatever a person's DOC is, has trained their brain and therefore their behaviors to be a certain way over time.
Yes.
It takes time to retrain those pathways, retrain those habits, if you will. And so you're right. You get into these 21 to 30-day programs, and you're just kind of getting to the point where you're like, oh, I feel good, I feel solid, and then you have to go back to everything else that might be associated, probably is, with your addiction, the stressors of family, the stressors of work, all those sorts of things. And they may be a little more jacked up than when you left if you've lost your job or something like that. So staying there longer is sort of like living at the gym.
Yeah.
Right? It's like this. That's my favorite analogy for retraining patterns of thinking. Is it's essentially like going to the gym. And knowledge is not enough without practice. You can know, we all know stuff. Like, what does it say on the side of a pack of cigarettes? Dangerous. You're a moron if you smoke this because you're going to get cancer, right? Basically, that's what it says.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it. And guess what? Smoking's on the rise with adolescents. Not just vaping, but actual cigarettes are sexy again. Mm-hmm. And so the reality is we can know a lot of stuff. We know what's dangerous and unhealthy, but we have to practice behaving differently before it becomes our second nature. Because, right, when you're just 30 days in, your second nature might still be, despite all your knowledge, despite the fact that you're feeling good, even if everyone's supportive, when things get stressful, your second nature might be what? I got to stop at the Maverick.
Yeah.
Right? But if you practice thinking and behaving differently, then you are eventually going to lay down new habits, new pathways that become your go-to. What's your go-to now compared to, we talked about before, you had a stressful day at work, you stop at the Maverick on the way home and grab yourself a 6-pack.
12-pack.
12-pack. Yeah, maybe if it was a 6-pack, we'd be okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But and some days it's a 24-pack. Like some days it's a lot more than other days. What's your go-to now when you get stressed?
I sit, I breathe, and I make myself be present. And it happens to me all the time. It happened to me 3 times driving down here. I'm driving down here and my car's going off because I've got to blow in this thing. That's a constant reminder of what I've done.
Right.
Okay. And so now I've got 2 choices right there. I can blow in that, and I can get in my head and go, man, you really messed up. You had it going.
Replay all that
and
stuff.
do all that stuff and live in it. Mm-hmm. Or I blow in it, turn up the radio, and go, I'm driving.
Because it wasn't too long ago that you were
asking guests for a ride home.
Exactly.
We haven't had many guests from Ogden lately. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they were all like, I don't want to drive that guy around.
But I got a car now. So that's what I do. Be mindful and go, okay, yeah, those things happen. I can't change those.
So you actually use mindfulness as one of your go-tos.
Yeah, it's my main go-to.
Yeah.
And I set the situation. I was talking to this lady I work with, and we were talking about, is your cup half empty? Is your cup half full? And I've always said this since I was in junior high. I've got a cup. I'm in the game.
Right.
It's up to me whether it's half full or half empty.
Ultimate optimist.
Yeah, I've got a cup because I know people who don't have a cup or don't think they have a cup.
Right.
I've got a cup, and it's up to me to fill it.
And that's beautiful that you're able to rely on some of your natural qualities of being an optimist. I've said it many times. That's one of your strengths, is being an optimist. You've learned a skill in recovery, which is mindfulness. And then one other thing that I'll say for you, which I know is one of your go-to, is connection with other people. You're definitely a people person. So I know that you reach out, and these things that you do get you through that hard moment. And if you get through that hard moment, then you're good again for a little while. But it's during those hard moments where our brain can trick us. And who was our guest that just came back?
Keaton.
Keaton, yeah. Keaton, he didn't make it through one of those hard moments and started drinking again. And I'm grateful to him for coming on and talking about that process so that people know that happens. So, there are a lot of different things people need to use so that they can get through those hard moments and keep their sobriety going over time. And those are what you use, and we love hearing from listeners. Many people have shared the things that they use.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a phone line, and we'll let you know what that number is, where you can call in and ask your questions. And once a month, we're going to have an episode where we just deal with listener questions. And it can be any question you want. Feel free. We're open books, and we'll answer them.
Yeah, if you want to be anonymous, you can send in a message, Facebook, and say, please keep this anonymous. We'll be happy to read it. But if you want to hear yourself on the show, if you want to put a little bit of your own flair into how you ask your question, then we're excited to have you leave a message.
But more importantly, keep reaching out to us. Keep the conversation going. That's what this podcast is all about, is opening a conversation about addiction and hopefully leading people to a path of recovery. So thank you for your time today. Thank you, Dr. Matt, for your insight. Thank you, Josh, for all you do. And thanks to everybody who out there listens. You're listening to Project Recovery. If you know somebody who needs some help, have them do what I did. Give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. Project Recovery is a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.